What's up guys, Dolph the Vegan here, coming at you with another riveting video on back pain. So this is the second part of the series, and I'm going to show you guys some stretches, some more advanced techniques so you can really gain flexibility. And flexibility is something that goes hand in hand with decreasing back pain. So I'm going to show you some stretches, some things that really help me out, and also share some advice, some things that I picked up from physical therapists and people who I've spoken to over the years and learned a lot from. So I'm gonna get into the stretches. Sorry if the audio quality is not very good. There's some wind out here. It's actually moving into fall now, so it's funny, yesterday was about 90 degrees outside and today it's like 60. So if any of you guys are interested or wondering about climate change, go ahead and Google search Arctic vortex. It's a pretty interesting concept, but that's probably something we should save for another video. So I'm gonna get into the stretches, set up the camera so you guys can see everything. Alright, so the first stretch we're gonna want to do is a basic stretch, just a hamstring stretch. So you're gonna want to touch your toes. If you can't touch your toes, just bend down as low as you can. Touch your shins, your ankles, whatever's easiest for you to reach. So hamstrings are really important to stretch. When I was starting off in physical therapy about 4 or 5 years ago for my herniated disc, the physical therapist actually told me that you have extremely tight hamstrings, and she said that that's something I really want to work on every day. So I started making the daily habit of waking up and stretching, and that's something that is really going to prevent injury and encourage muscle flexibility, right? And years ago I spoke to a physical therapist named Jerry, and he said that with physical therapy, flexibility is tremendous because when you're more flexible, you recruit more muscle fibers when you do activity. And those muscle fibers and using them are actually what prevents injury. So the more muscles you have going into an activity, the more cushion or protection you have for those joints and also for your bones, right? So you don't want that pressure to fall against the joint. You want cushioning and you want the muscle to absorb. Because think about when you get injured. You get injured when you're tired, when that skeletal muscle is basically exhausted and the pressure falls in the joint. So a great thing to do is just to stretch out those hamstrings when you can. If you're about to go for a run or you're about to cycle, don't necessarily stretch before that activity because that weakens muscle. Maybe stretch afterwards or plan an entirely different point at which you can stretch those muscles. And the next stretch to do is going to be a little harder, is to keep your back straight, and then we're not going to touch your toes, but we're just going to bend down while keeping the back straight. Now you'll feel this pull against your hamstrings right away. Just keeping the back straight and bending down. Tremendous. You don't necessarily have to have your knees straight for this. You can bend your knees a little bit, but you're going to feel that right behind your knee. It's a very good stretch. Alright, so another stretch you could do, which is really simple, is just to, pull the back of your foot, stretch out your quadricep. So this is a really simple stretch. I always like to stretch standing up first because it's just the simplest way before I get on the mat. And on the mat, that's where we're going to do the really in-depth back stretches. But you might as well be productive and get this done before you do that. So left leg. You don't have to go too crazy with this. This isn't as important a stretch, but it's something you're going to want to do. Alright, so when I get on the mat, one of the first stretches I do is I get down on my knees and I get into a push-up position, right? And what you're going to do is roll your hips forward and just lean back and bring your head up to the sky. It's really stretching that lower back area, that lumbar spine. And I didn't want to put this in the first video because this could be painful for someone who doesn't have flexibility and has a significant injury in their back. So right from here, just lift your pelvis off the ground and roll back. This is actually a yoga pose. I'm not sure what it's called, but I also like to stretch out my shoulders when I do this pose. And you go from here and you can just roll right back into it. You can repeat this a number of times. And this is just overall a good stretch to have. From here, if you want, you can also do another yoga pose, which I don't know the name of course, because I've sat in on a bunch of yoga classes and I just kind of memorized the movements, but you kind of get on your toes, and the more you push back on your arms, the more of a hamstring calf stretch you get. This is a really good stretch. And I kind of interchange these three. Just switch between those three, and that really gets my back going. So from here, I like to do some more hamstring stretches. Just sit down, basic stretch. Get your legs out in front of you and touch your toes. Very basic. I kind of have my default stretches that I just go to, and it just makes everything really simple for me. Simple is better. Here we're going into a butterfly stretch. You're just going to want to pull your feet towards you. Just grab them and pull them towards you. This really stretches the groin, and that's an area that a lot of athletes have a problem with. If you ever had a pulled groin, it's one of the most painful things. It's just a pain in the ass, along with the pulled hamstring. Pulled hamstring is like, you know, that could sideline you for a few weeks. So I've never had a pulled hamstring, luckily. Alright, so usually from the butterfly stretch, go into wide legs. Now this is great because this is stretching the groin at the same time as you're stretching your hamstrings. So to start this off, just take both hands and go to the left side. If you can't touch your toes, just touch your shin, right? This is a gradual process, becoming more flexible. The more flexible you are, the better it is to avoid injury. Alright, do the same thing with the right leg. It's good to breathe during this process. Just take deep breaths. Try to get as much oxygen in as you can. Alright. Next, reach out in front of you. Just kind of shake your legs out. It's good to do. And repeat those stretches. Now, you don't have to get crazy with stretching. You don't have to be a ballerina, but if you do it consistently, you'll get the benefit of having less injury. Alright, so from here, there's a few stretches that I really want to show you. You're going to lay back. Now, bring up your left leg and bring it across your body while keeping your pelvis on the ground as much as you can. Now my back just cracked. And this is great. It's really a great stretch for the outside part of your leg and your glutes, as well as your back. But I wouldn't recommend this for somebody who's experiencing back pain right now, because the torque that you're putting on your lower spine, that's something that can really hurt you at first. So I wouldn't have done this stretch for for actually a while. When I was originally had the fractured vertebrae and the herniated disc. So this was something that I gradually picked up and do the same thing. The right leg, yeah, you see there it is again, it cracks. But this also stretches the hamstring too. You can feel it right behind. If you touch your toes in this position, you can feel it right in the back of your knee. Alright. Another thing that I like to do is right from here, just roll it out. Just roll everything. If you want, you can roll up and touch your toes. Hamstring stretch. And kind of, I do this stretch, I'm not sure what it's called, but this is a really great hamstring stretch. And I like to touch my toes so I get that pull in the back of my leg, as well as stretching out my spine. Now, it's not something you have to do, it's more advanced, but the more flexibility you have in your spine, the better it is to avoid injury. That's honestly my take on it. So whenever you do one motion, you want to be able to do the opposite motion. Like before, you saw me curve my back up in that first stretch where my head was up towards the sky. Now I'm doing the opposite, where I'm curving my spine towards me. So even with workouts, you want to have opposing forces. So if I stretch my back one way, I should be able to stretch it the other way. Now this is something I was not able to do for a long time. I can never stretch like this. So over the past 4 years of making stretching a daily habit, putting my body in uncomfortable positions for a few minutes, and then gradually it starts to become more comfortable. I'm at the point now where I have no back pain at all. I can bend over and pick up heavy boxes because I know what to do later to realign my spine. And it's a huge relief, you know, overall. So another stretch I want to show you is we're going to get down on our stomachs. And now this is the same stretch, but opposite of what I showed you before, where I was on my back and I brought my leg across my body. We're gonna lay down, kind of put your arms out, and you're gonna want to put your leg and try to touch your hand. So this is the opposite of that leg across the body. And you may feel your back crack. My back just cracked twice. But it's something good to do. Just use any of these stretches as you go along by feel. You know, think about what feels tight and tailor your stretches towards what you want to loosen up, you know, on that given day. Now, there is research that shows that stretching before a physical activity could be harmful, because they say that stretching weakens the muscle before physical activity. And like I said before, when you weaken muscles, or you have muscles that aren't, you know, firing, that's what leaves your joints and, you know, your skeleton susceptible to injury. So optimally, what you want to do is have a habit of stretching, so that when you're doing physical activity, you have recruited more muscle fibers when you do that activity. But that's something that happens over a period of time. It's not something that you can just stretch out right before activity and then you have more muscle. That's not how it works. So I'm not entirely sure what other stretches I wanted to show you. Quad stretch. So bring my leg right behind. I don't know if you guys can see that. and I got my leg forward, so from here I can reach out and stretch my hamstring again, or I can lean all the way back and stretch out this quad. Now this is going to be painful for somebody who hasn't stretched out their quad before. It is still painful for me, but really do get a great stretch. If you can't lay all the way back, just put your arm down and just lean into it. Lean as far back as you can and hold it there. And remember to take deep breaths. Alright, now we're going to switch. So if you can't already tell, I'm definitely someone who supports stretching. I think that there's people out there who get tremendous benefit of doing a daily stretching habit. There's also people that, through yoga, they build a tremendous amount of muscle, and they do it in a healthy way. Because what I would like to see is people who are more into weightlifting get into stretching as well and get into flexibility, because there can be so many injuries, you know, when you're doing resistance exercises like weights. People who are into CrossFit, so many people get injured. So many people, when they come up from a deadlift, just rip their hamstring right off, man. And if you don't think stretching could prevent that, then, you know, it's sad when you see people who work so hard in the gym, but then they set themselves back months, weeks from their training with a simple injury that could have been avoided. So the stretching game, the flexibility game, that's something that you want to focus on for long-term fitness. Because if you want to stay in the gym, you know, have better recovery, have more consistent workouts, you're gonna have less injury with stretching. So a groin stretch. All right, so shoulder length apart, legs, get down to squat position. Get your arms behind your Achilles, and then just use your elbows to widen your legs, and you're gonna feel that push or that pull in your groin. You also can just do it like this. Sorry about that, the camera shut off. But as I was saying, if you're somebody that likes to cycle, somebody that squats heavy in the gym, another stretch you could do is lunges. Now when you do a lunge, now I see people in the gym all the time doing weighted lunges, and this is how far they go. Like, that's it, you know? Now with me, and this is something that I can repeat all day, you know, 100%, it does not matter what weight you're using when you're doing the exercise. The number one thing you want to worry about is technique. Now I'm somebody that I want to do the exercise perfectly and get the maximum benefit of the range of motion of the exercise while not really focusing on the weight. So when I see somebody who's doing a lunge like this, I'm thinking, what's the point of putting weight to that exercise when you're not even getting the full benefit of it? So when I do a lunge, I come up and I try to get as deep into the lunge as possible, right? Because that's gonna stretch out this quad while putting a lot more weight on this front leg, which is like basically a one-legged squat. And then you're gonna want to touch the tip of your kneecap to the ground and come back. Right? So that is an exercise, but it's also a stretch. So another stretch you could do is you could get down on one knee, and you could take this front leg that you used in the lunge, and you can just curve it out. And that's going to stretch your hip flexor and your groin. You can use your elbow. I don't know if you can see, I'll use the other leg. So I take this leg and I bring it out as much as I can. So it's like, I guess, perpendicular. and you can really feel like your groin muscle stretch out. So you just push your knee outward. That's a great thing to work on. I actually had a knee injury about a month ago, and I went to visit my friend who's a physical therapist, and she said that I needed to stretch big time my hips. My hips were very tight, and when I was doing the motion of cycling, a lot of pressure was falling onto my knee because of how tight my hips were. My hips just weren't rolling with the exercise. So once I made a habit of stretching out my hips, there's also another stretch I can show you guys. I'm going to show you in a few minutes. But it takes the pressure off the joints, man. I mean, that's what physical therapy, that's what it's all based around. It's just strengthening muscles so that you eliminate pressure, and those muscles absorb the pressure and take that pressure away from your spine, takes it away from your knees, takes it away from your shoulders, your elbows, whatever joint in the body, your ankles. So stretching and doing exercises that target smaller muscle groups is really what you want to do to reverse a lot of injuries. So my battery is about to run out, but I'm gonna go change it and show you some more. Okay, so I just dug this up for you guys, and this right here is the hip flexor stretch half cobra. So I'm guessing the full cobra is both legs in split form. So this is a simple exercise. You can see it's on a table right there. I've actually done this on my bed, just standing to the side of it. And what's on the other side? Yeah, there's some more exercises here on the back. Alright, so I'm starting to realize that I can honestly do different stretches and go through different stretches all day with you guys. But, you know, I want to keep the length of this video down, and I don't want to discourage people who don't have a lot of time from watching this video. So if you guys have any ideas, anything that you want to share in the comments section, I'd really appreciate it. A lot of the knowledge that I've gotten about these things have not been original ideas. They're things that I've pulled from other people and information that I've learned along the way. So injuries are really something that you want to avoid. Back injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries, and I honestly encourage any person who's an athlete, any person who physical activity is important for them, to make a habit of stretching daily. And this video is not so much just for back pain, but it's just for anybody who's looking to improve their fitness, improve their quality of life. That if you make stretching a daily habit, it really will take care of you in the long run, by the ability that you will have to continue to do exercises on a daily basis without getting injured. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you have any thoughts, any comments, please share them below, and I'll see you soon. Take care.